Beep, 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 beep. Hey, how goes it? Right, what we got today? Come Warrior Teacher. If you can buy me a coffee, please do, or become a Jesterite to keep me going. That would be really great, okay? I hate that begging bit. It's horrible, but it's how I earn my living. It's weird, isn't it? What a strange way for a man my age to earn his living, doing this. Well, let's talk Dr. P, which I know sounds like a Bond villain, but she's actually a marvellous, very bouncy woman who I've had the pleasure of talking to, and who is now joining us as a Warrior Teacher in March, which I'm delighted about. Goes under the nom de plume, so to say, of PsychGirl211 on Twitter, providing us with very insightful threads on all issues psychological. So this is another one from her, and it's brilliant. So I'm just going to take you through this. Come be a Warrior Teacher. And you can join Dr. P as well. So I'm going to take you through this. Right. Hi, X, says Dr. P. Brilliant. So let's talk about thinking styles, suicide risks, and gender-affirming healthcare, as she calls it, brackets, GAC, gender-affirming care. This is going to be another long post. Your executive functions need to be up to scratch. So what she's saying is get your thinking caps on, grab a cup of tea, and let's dig in. So I'll take you through some of it, and then I'll put the link to the Dubris so you can go and have a look at the whole tweet and follow Dr. P. Okay, now, so here we go. It's an article of faith, number one says, to trans rights activists that if children and adolescents are not allowed to transition, they will kill themselves. Now, we've heard this all the time. It's all, it's nonsense things. Number two, if it were true that going through normal puberty increased the risk of death, there would be abundant historical evidence. Additionally, there should be uncountable suicides happening right now across the world where gender-affirming care is not available. But this isn't happening now, and there's no historical evidence that it ever did. The myth of what I call fake news, factually non-existent gender dysphoria, being a precursor to and cause of suicide, parasuicide, and suicidal ideations, is a cynical manipulation of vulnerable youngsters by the rapacious gender industry and deluded trans rights activists. God love her, right? Trans-identified children do have higher levels of suicidal ideation and self-harming behaviours than their age-matched non-clinical peers. But these levels are the same as for children referred for other mental health problems or psychosocial problems. For example, a sexual abuse survivor, truancy, emotional problems being beyond parental control, and children with autism, etc. An internet questionnaire asking trans-identified youngsters, in reality, anyone, brackets, close brackets, about whether they have thought of killing themselves is not sufficient. Yet this is the type of thing they're using, isn't it? This type of thing that TRAs are using. All the organisations are using it. Even Manchester Council used it. Andy Burnham's used it. This nonsense. Properly determining suicidality requires in-person assessment. Ideally, without parents present, they'd get interviewed separately. This should be done by a qualified clinician conducting a thorough clinical interview and using a standardised tool such as the Children's Depression Inventory or the Ask Suicide Screening question. Questions should be asked about preparations for suicide, previous attempts, parasuicide, lifetime history, suicidal ideations, and mood changes. A sudden elevation in mood is a strong indicator of an imminent attempt. Risk is then rated low, medium, high, and appropriate action is taken to keep the child safe if needed. Studies show a link between suicidality and trans ideation in youngsters. Have it backwards. The respondents have suicidal thoughts because the social contagion of gender ideology has fueled the existing developmental, psychosocial, and neurobiological problems and repackaged them as FNGD. I can't remember what she called that now. Let's look back, shall we? Fake news, factually non-existent gender dysphoria, right? Fake news, factually non-existent gender dysphoria. So in other words, they are the respondents They're having these thoughts because it's been fueled by the ideation, by fake news, by fake ideas of gender dysphoria. So the actual harm of the very thinking about this in the first place is the iatrogenic bit. It's iatrogenically harmful, which means it is the harm. So introducing children to the ridiculous cult belief of gender identity actually causes them harm. Goodness me. The ideation, suicidal ideation, in trans-identified children, those who have taken on this disgusting belief system that's being pushed by teachers and by television channels and everybody else, that child then behaves in that way, that sort of suicidal ideation, because it's a learned behaviour. That is what was being said here by Dr. P. Very important to understand that. It's an educational problem, as I keep saying, and you'll remember my chart. Man chart. Man chart alert, women's. Man chart alert. Where I said the first thing is education. What was the second one? First one was education. Second, therapy was third. That's all I can remember at the moment. The first one was education. Educational triage is the first step. Then therapy is way up there before you even get to it. So this is an educational problem. It needs to be educational first. We've got to get it out of the schools. Got to start telling the children the truth about this cult. It says here that generally, number 8, suicidal ideations are triggered by feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, both together, hopelessness and helplessness. Death is seen as an escape from uncontrollable and unavoidable mental distress. A suicidal person has a pervasive negative thinking style. This is characterized by specific errors in thinking called cognitive distortions. Cognitive thinking, distortions, all wrong. The main cognitive distortions are, number 9, all or nothing thinking, seeing the world in extremes. In extremis, everything is either good or bad, a success or failure. There are no grey areas. One of the major parts of the Warrior Teacher Program is creating grey areas in the minds of these people. It's creating grey areas. We do a lot of that. We try to understand that very intricately so we know how to do it. Should statements is another example. Always thinking about things that you should or must do because you always think you should be doing something. You end up feeling as if you're constantly failing. Overgeneralization, always and never occur, dominate one's thinking. One bad instance is generalized to an overall pattern. And mental filler, taking one small event and focusing on it exclusively, filtering out anything else. I call that rumination. Some clarification there for me is that I see that as rumination. So Dr. P is talking here from the point of view of a therapist, I think. Here we can safely say. So this is being discussed in the argot of therapy. And you should go and read the whole thread. It's a long thread, but it's well worth a read. And it will give you some idea of, in fact, we're teaching this to kids and they're taking on board what we're teaching. Said it all along. 3 levels, which I've now remembered. Safeguarding, education, therapeutic. That's the levels. And I think that's exactly what Dr. P is saying here. But you tell me if I'm right or wrong. Please do go and visit Dr. P's Twitter feed and go and have a look and see what she's up to. And I'm looking forward to butting heads with Dr. P on the Warrior Teacher Winning Mindset Program. So I'll see you soon, everybody. Have a great day.